We are now on to our second round. We have feed on everything except for 50 colonies. We're short some pails. So we're making it around before the weather sets in tomorrow to scrounge to find some pails that aren't being used. So we're going to the first yards that we set out, and we're topping up the pails there because I only instructed half a pail per colony in this yard. And now, well, they practically finished it, so we're going to top them up to make sure they have enough to chew on throughout this cold or any snowy weather it's coming. And also identify the colonies that we quickly went through, put a pail on, maybe aren't using it. And for the most part, I think our assessment's been correct. We have a few deads that are pulling out, obviously, but we don't have too many that aren't taking syrup, and that's a really good sign. That's something that we need to see right now. If the colony is taking syrup, especially early days when it's cool, they're taking the syrup, either they really need it or they have enough girth that they can take it. That sun come out just as they've promised. Blue sky, and the bees love it. They are on the feed. Hanging off that screen is a very good sign. A sign of girth. A sign of, well, when they take syrup, I only anticipate that as being a good sign. And I want to get that syrup into them, and I want them to get up and fly like this, just to kind of void whatever is going on in their guts. Such a good sound. This yard actually isn't all that messy. This yard looks decent. Hanging off that screen. Out of the way, girls. That one's dead. That one is done their feed. Underneath here. They're light. Full of bees. Hanging on that tail, that's, I mean, taking syrup like that's a good sign. I'm very happy with that, especially light. Box of bees. We identified this colony as being a starved out. Such a sad state of affairs. A lot of bees. A lot of bees. Here's a frame right full of pollen. Here's another frame right full of pollen. Some of this pollen is powdered a bit. I think they're trying to get at the sugars they mixed within it. open frame here. Look at that, isn't that sad? They just starved exactly in place. All these little bees are within the cells, ringing the cluster. A little bit of winter brood going on. There's a lot of winter brood going on there. I wouldn't say a lot, but patch. Pulling around the outside. A little bit of brood. The bees just kind of starved exactly where they were. Ringed, I'm not sure if you can see that. There's bees in the cells ringing the cluster. Here we're getting to the outside, so I'm seeing more bees in the cells as we're getting to the outside of the cluster. Brood again, so there's quite a bit of brood in here, considering it's a winter nest. Little bees in there. More brood, more bees in the cells. Empty frame. And frame with pollen in it. Regardless of the matter, we have a freshly starved beehive. So sad. Those are the hardest ones to lose. This is my box of losses. I forgot my container to take samples of some of the worst within the apiary. So I put them all together in one box here, and I'm going to take this, dump them into a container, and do a diagnostic on them to see what's up. I took out my microscope, and from my bee samples, I mashed about 10 or 15 bees. So I put it on a slide and slid it underneath just to take a look, and sure enough, there's no eczema there. But I don't really know how to quantify that. I'm going to take these samples, I'll give them to Derek in our tech transfer program, and I'll get him to tell me exactly what's going on. But what I did is I used Randy Oliver's sequential sampling just to try to bring a little bit of understanding to see what I'm seeing here. And he suggested that you take your bees, you mash the bee up one at a time, you take 10 bees in that sample, and then you follow through with 10 colonies the same way to get a real accurate description of what you're seeing. I haven't gone through, like I just took from my sample here. I appreciate these are from the smaller, the weaker, the ones close to death or dying. So they're sampling the bottom end of my operation. I went through and I chose out 10 bees, and I only found one with a nosema infection in it, and just loaded full of nosema infection. All the rest were absolutely clear. Just shows you how maybe just one out of the bunch can give you a misrepresentation of the sample itself. The rest are just clear, absolutely clear. And I'm looking under the microscope, and I'm looking very closely. My eyesight isn't the best, but I'm seeing all this, like within one of the healthy samples, all this activity. Just very, very busy activity, scurrying back and forth and doing stuff in between the stuff. So very interesting. Through my sampling, it's showing that I'm clear, like in the healthy spectrum for nosema. So that's good. But I'm also going to be taking samples throughout the bee yards. I'm going to take a random sample between the colonies and just try to figure out what I'm seeing. If I can figure out what I'm seeing. What I probably need is just to relax, let them clean themselves out, and maybe after some sunshiny days, revisit and take a look, and maybe I'll see something different.